All right, so today I'm bringing you another recipe. We're kind of new to this recipe. I usually make it with chicken even though it is a pork recipe. And today I am taking on the pork recipe with you guys. So it wasn't that we necessarily were for or against the pork. We just usually have chicken in the house. So when I've thrown this together in the past, that's just what we had. So for those of you who are new to me, new to the page, I am Erin Moore, founder of Success with More Nutrition, and weekly, at least weekly, bringing you some different recipes and videos on exactly what I'm doing, exactly how I'm doing it, because I know when I first started getting healthy, that was one thing that really held me back, is just really not knowing how to cook things. And then even with having a recipe to follow, not quite being able to navigate my way around it or understand some of the terms or even know how to basically cut things up. So if I can help take that fear away and take that excuse away, then awesome. Would love the feedback. Drop comments during the video, after the video. When you make the recipe, come back, post on the page. Let us know you made it, maybe how you change things up. Almost every recipe I've shared with you guys, I show you how I've changed it up. Like I said, I usually make this with chicken. So if you're chicken people, go ahead and make it with chicken. Same recipe, and it's simple and easy. This one's gonna be in a crock pot. So if you're new to crock pot cooking, but you want simple, easy, healthy recipes, I highly suggest putting some money into getting a crock pot. Super simple crock pot so you can make some meals. I have a couple. I started with one smaller, and then I like to double, triple recipes so that I can cook more all at once, freeze some stuff, and have more healthy meals already ready to go. So today I'm doing the same thing, doubling up this recipe. This recipe called for 2.5 pounds of pork loin, I think. A lot of times when you go to the store, you'll find that it'll call for certain cuts of meat, but you can't find certain cuts of meat. Definitely stop by the meat counter, ask them. They're gonna always tell you what's similar. In this case, they asked us, well, are you wanting it cut cubed up or are you hoping for it shredded? We said shredded. They said this would be perfect. So it's not the exact cut of pork that the recipe calls for, no problem. And we actually got a really, really good deal on it, so we have extra. But so basically all I'm doing is I'm gonna pop this bad boy out of the package. And if you can see on the video, there's quite a bit of fat right here at the top. You can make your own decisions on whether you wanna keep that fat or not. I'm trying to cook as healthy and as lean as possible, so I really do take a lot of that fat away. With pork, you're gonna have fat layered in there anyway, so cutting off some of the excess is not gonna be a bad thing. So I'm gonna be cutting this off. And then what's great about the crock pot is we're not gonna have to chunk up this bad boy. We're just really gonna be able to throw it in there just as it is. So I don't have the best of knives, and for those of you who are knife people, I'm sure you can already tell that I am not using the best knife for this. Yeah, but I'm a little fearful of knives, so I just use the dull ones on purpose because I don't want to cut myself. Cut myself really bad when I was a little kid, and it's just kind of carried through with me. So, but if you guys ever have any awesome recommendations for ones that you like, I'd be happy to hear from them because I'm not used to doing a cooking show. Now I'm always cooking in front of people and I'm like, oh yeah, this knife needs to be working a little bit better. So I am just cutting away. And so as you can see, even if you kind of know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. And I just know that I want this top layer of fat off before I toss it in. So as you're watching, go ahead and comment, give me tips if you got them. I'm gonna actually go ahead and turn this video off for just a minute while I cut this layer off, and we'll be right back. All right, so we're back. So I went ahead and chopped off some of the extra fat, and then literally there's still bone in here and everything. Just gonna put it right into the crock pot. So again, if you were doing this with chicken or something like that, you could do that right with chicken on a bone or, ones without the bone. It's all gonna break up off the bone in the crock pot, get all nice, and we're gonna be able to shred it up later. So the recipe then calls for some cilantro. I just usually take it and cut it off right where there's usually like some kind of wrap or something on it. I just chop off all of this, and then I'm left with the leaves at the top. So voila, then we disperse that, and then I'm just gonna chop this up a little bit into some little chunks, but nothing too crazy. I mean, I'm putting it in the crock pot. It's gonna wilt. It's gonna give it a great flavor. Cilantro is one of my absolutely favorite things. If you love cilantro, hit me up in the comments. Say, oh, I love cilantro too. It's actually one of my top favorite smells. I love the smell of cilantro. So just chopping it up here. For those that are brand new to cooking, like, don't get all stressed out about it. Like, all I did was make a few cuts in it, and then I'm just gonna put it right in here. It does kind of say in the recipe a measured out amount of cilantro. It says a half cup chopped. I just love cilantro, so no matter what I cook, I usually just throw in the whole thing. And it'll be great. I mean, it is a cilantro recipe. It's in the name, so we'll be good. I think I said the name, but cilantro lime shredded chicken. And then so we usually do it just like we would do tacos or fajitas, or you could even put them like on a bun, like barbecue shredded chicken. So however you want to serve it up, it's gonna be amazing. The recipe for 2.5 pounds of the pork calls for a 1/4 cup of lime juice. I'm doubling the recipe, so I'm gonna go ahead and put in 1/2 cup of lime juice. And a lot of times when I make different Mexican dishes and stuff, I'll always put lime juice in anyway. I love that it'll give it just a little bit of a flavor, keeps the moisture going. This calls for chili powder for those that have been watching. Everything that I'm cooking is going to be gluten-free as well as low FODMAP free. With low FODMAP, just make sure that you're finding a chili powder that does not have onion or garlic in it, if that's something that you're following. This is gonna be my one little splurge, is that I'm not paying total attention to the low FODMAP with the chili powder for today and today only, but a lot of times I do. I just haven't gotten a substitute yet for my chili powder. And this one may be okay. It doesn't seem to bother me, but we're all different. And if you have no clue what I'm talking about with low FODMAP, no problem. The people who need to know exactly who I'm talking to. So if it doesn't apply to you, just be happy about it, because it means you can't eat a whole lot of things. So the next thing is it's calling for ground cumin. For the chili powder, it called for a tablespoon. For this, it's calling for a tablespoon as well. So again, I'm doubling the recipe. We love cumin, so I actually just put a little bit extra in. Really what this is doing is it's creating almost like a taco seasoning, fajita seasoning flavor. So you could use this when you're cooking up ground turkey and you want to make tacos. You can use this with chicken that you're cooking in a pan or in the crock pot to make that southwestern seasoning flair. But for those that need to be gluten-free or low FODMAP free, sometimes those seasonings are gonna have problems for us. So making it with some chili powder, some cumin, salt, that kind of thing, you're good to go. So for the salt, we're doing, just one moment, we're doing a teaspoon of salt. I just had to grab the measure. So again, doubling it up, we're gonna do 2 teaspoons of salt. And it does call for kosher salt. If you've seen some of my other videos, I usually use Himalayan salt. For this, it was just easier to be able to quick pour, put the regular old table salt in there. But a lot of times I'll use the other kind of salt. So whatever salt floats your boat, if regular old table salt is what you have, great. And then that's everything. I'll share the recipe, but it's just my scribble scratch. Oh, I got a recipe in the back, so you won't even be able to read it. 2.5 pounds of the pork loin, a 1/4 cup of the lime juice, a tablespoon of chili powder, a tablespoon of cumin, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 2 teaspoons, not 1. So I'm gonna go ahead and double that up. And then the half-cupped cilantro. And actually, I'm just gonna leave it there. We don't need the extra salt. We kind of take 2. We'll add to it if we want it. I'm not a big salt person, so we're just gonna leave it like that. So that is it. It's all dumped into the crock pot. Cook for 6 to 8 hours on low. When I first got into crock pot cooking, that made me a little uneasy to like, oh, I have to think so far ahead. But I mean, this is literally like breakfast or lunch, get it going. My crock pot has a setting where you can then just switch it to warm when it's cooked. So even if it's cooked several hours before, you just switch it over. It'll keep it at a decent temperature, but not to where it's actually still cooking it. My crock pot actually cooks a lot faster. So even though it says 6 to 8 hours, this will be done cooking in probably 4. And then if you did need it cooked, that was on a low setting. If you did need it cooked faster, because sometimes I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to put it in. It's already 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. I'll just put it on high. With the low setting, it just gives it a chance for the flavor to really get in there. But if we need quick, easy go, hey, a lot of us are moms or we're just really wanting to be healthy. You can make this recipe for 1. Save it in individual size servings. Pull them right out of the freezer. The next day, it's going to be ready and good to go. This is going to feed us for the next several days, and I'm going to have some to freeze. So anything that you can do to just make it easy for yourself. I was able to get healthy and stick with it because I didn't have the excuse that I'm hungry and I want something now. I'm hungry and I want something now, and all I have to do is get home and warm it up for 5 minutes. So that's kind of how we rock and roll. You can have steamer veggies ready to go with this. And that's really it. We're gonna make it more like taco fajita style. So we'll have it with wraps later tonight. We all actually like it a little bit different. I'll have mine over lettuce. My husband will have his with his wraps. My kids might have it with a couple of tortilla chips, but we'll be good to go and it'll be delicious. So I'll pop on several hours later. For you, it'll only be seconds, and I'll show you the finished product. Have a good one. All right. So there's no sneaking one by you guys. I am in totally different clothes. My hair's probably a little different. So kudos to you for if you recognize that before I even said anything. So just as a lot of us would know, if you're moms like me, recording something that's a crock pot meal where it starts early in the day and ends later in the day doesn't necessarily mean that when it's ready to come out that your kids are in a state to be able to video record and share with everybody. So here we are next day, and I just want to show you that we had the crock pot. If you're brand new to crock pot, I showed you that we put that pork right in where there was still bone on it. So literally when it was time to take that off, it just with a fork peeled off. And then I like to take 2 forks and I just kind of dice it while it's still in the crock pot. Or a lot of times the recipe will say like take all the meat out and like kind of shred it and then put it back in. One thing that I didn't do correctly, so if you'd like to not make my mistake, pay close attention, is I actually added the cilantro in when we were putting everything in. And what I was supposed to do was add the cilantro in right when the meal was being completed, and then you add it all in. Not a big deal. I love crock pots because you can really just make mistakes and it doesn't matter. Maybe change up the flavor a little bit because of the way you did or did not do it. So we just didn't have that nice taste of the cilantro because it was already kind of all mixed in and sat there and heated up for all that time while it was in the crock pot. So no problem. But so now I want to show you kind of the aftermath of what happened. So the pork, when it was all done and all off the bone and shredded, went into one of these pretty big containers, and I mean it was like packed stuff, and then we had some of it to eat, right? And then we've since had more to eat, and I'm about to use leftovers. I'm going to show you how I usually do a lot of my Southwestern flair foods, where I can still have a salad, still have some crunch and all that. So I'll bring you back to that. But I just pulled this out of the freezer because then what I did was this thing's packed to the brim with pork as well. So after we had kind of divvied it up and had some to eat, I actually froze some. So, you know, in a few days, in a few weeks, doesn't matter. I'll pull this out and then we'll be able to have something fresh and new without having the same meal 5 nights in a row, because this literally could have fed us for 5 nights in a row. So I just split it up. We love it. So we did end up enjoying it with the pork. I was kind of freaked out about it because I don't do a lot of stuff with like animal meat, and the animal pork with all of the fat in there was a little bit much for me personally, but it's been absolutely delicious. I just kind of skimmed out the fat. Once it refrigerates, the fat will kind of become hard, and I just skimmed it out afterwards. So I hope all that was helpful. Let's show you how we finished up, and then hopefully you can do this quick and easy crock pot meal. Didn't take a lot of spices, doesn't take any kind of weird anything, and you could always substitute stuff. Don't be afraid, especially in the crock pot. Just be like, oh, I don't have this spice, but I'm just gonna do it this way. It will still end up amazing and be some kind of shredded yummy goodness if that's what you intended it to be. So I just went ahead and actually took lettuce already, and I don't know, I do something funny where I used to always just shred up the lettuce like I would for an everyday salad, but now I like to take like the full romaine, and I thought I had a knife out, but we'll pretend that I have a knife, right? I literally just slice it long like this way, and so I still get this awesome little shredded lettuce, as if I were like eating at a restaurant or something. I don't know, something I like to do when I'm doing like the Mexican flares. I like it shredded even though it tastes the same. It's just something silly I do, so feel free to do it that way and play around if you'd like that idea. And then like I said, we just have the leftover pork. If you're really being strict and want to take a good look at about how much you're adding, you know, depending on what your meal plan is and what your protein goal is, you can measure this out anywhere from 3 to 6 ounces. The difference with like if you were using fish or shrimp is you're just going to get less calories and less saturated fat than you are from pork, and then definitely into the red meats, more calories for the same amount of protein. That's why I just tend to make a lot of chicken dishes and change up the flavor constantly and change up how I cook it. I have that video, Chicken 101, and that mentions those too. And then I have a couple articles where I just mentioned that as well. So I like to have the little crunch as if I'm still having a big Mexican meal. So like instead of the tortilla wraps or like a big thing, I'll just take like a little handful of the chips. Usually I do this before the meat, but I forgot. And I just like to crunch it up. So that was probably all but like 5 or 6 chips, but now it's like completely covering my dish. So then when I'm taking bites, I still have that salty crunch, and I feel like I'm like really splurging, but really I'm not at all. So it totally works. And then I'm just gonna have a few tomatoes on here, black olives on here, and then for those of you that are low FODMAP or dairy free, this is just one of my new go-tos. I'm not a huge fan of veggie cheese in place of like a slice of cheese, but I found on my Mexican dishes to still have like a little sprinkle of cheese, that this totally works. Again, if you're really wanting to be on your A game, you can measure these out. If you're using something like MyFitnessPal or something like that, you know, I'm not against counting, measuring, and weighing, even though I say a lot of times we don't have to do it. But sometimes it's just nice to like get a really good idea that if a serving size of the shredded cheese is a 1/4 cup, what's that actually look like? If a serving size of nuts is, you know, a 1/4 cup or 24, 28 grams, what's that look like? If you want to have 3 ounces or 5 ounces of chicken or pork or steak, what's it look like? So sometimes it's good to just visually get an idea. Peanut butter is a big one. We can really over scoop or under scoop on peanut butter. So if you want to have peanut butter as a healthy snack, just measure it out in a tablespoon so you know what a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of serving actually look like. And then it's a good idea to always revisit every once in a while, because our eyes can get bigger than our stomachs or whatever that phrase is, and all of a sudden that measured out scoop is once again much bigger because we still think it looks like that tablespoon, or the other way around. I find that I tend to get smaller and smaller, and then I'm like, ooh, I can have more. So it's always exciting to remeasure. So guys, that is really all I did. I went ahead, I had my shredded lettuce, I had my meat from the crock pot, and then added just some of my favorite toppings that I would for any kind of Mexican style dish. If you are not lactose free and want a really healthy, if you're not lactose, don't have lactose issues, and want a really great substitute for sour cream, because I'm a huge sour cream lover, is for years I've been using Greek yogurt. I remember a friend of mine, another health coach, was always talking about, oh, we're having this dish, and so we got to go run and get Greek yogurt. And I finally were like, what do you add to the Greek yogurt to make it like sour cream? And she looked at me funny. She's like, what do you mean? I said, well, you always are like using it for sour cream. What do you add? And she said, I don't add anything. So it never dawned on me that Greek yogurt actually is very, very similar in taste and consistency. And no, it's not exactly the same. So one fun thing I like to do is add a little taco seasoning or a little chipotle seasoning, or maybe even a little cumin powder, and mix it into the Greek yogurt. And then you have this flavored sour cream, and it is delicious. And then you still get to have that creamy additive, which I love to these kind of dishes, without feeling extra guilty. So I would love to get your feedback. Drop me a comment if you're gonna go try this recipe, or even if it's not the recipe but you like some of the tips. I'd love the feedback. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to just drop the comment below. If you're brand new, this is your first cooking show video you've seen of mine, feel free to just type in comments new. I'd love to see who's out there and who's watching and who all we have. Happy New Year 2018. Enjoy these recipes every single Thursday. We are posting new recipes, I believe, at 2 p.m. So you can constantly watch for those. Every Wednesday I'm doing the What's the Skinny articles, and then all the other days I'm posting, I'm going live. You are helping me determine what to post live. So keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming. If there's something you'd love for me to talk about, don't hesitate to drop it on down or send me a message. So have a absolutely beautiful and healthy day, and keep healthy simple. Bye guys.